Okay. Can I be live on 2 tabs at once? That is today's question. Okay. Apparently so. Hello. You are either watching this on YouTube or Facebook. And if you're on YouTube, then this is my first time doing it as a live video. So let me know what you think as I fix my hair. Because while I cannot multitask and do that influencer thing where I put my makeup on, also I don't wear makeup, while I talk, I can fiddle with my hair and this one curl that just really wants to be unique. Okay, I got to stop looking at myself. That'll fix this problem. Okay, good morning. It is halfway through the month of December somehow. And before the month is up, I wanted to come to you and talk about a business thing because this is what I do. This is my job. Trying to make you more aware and less afraid of all the business things. So today's topic of conversation is contracts. Now, big disclaimer right from the top, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. Don't think that that's what this is. These are general recommendations. This is information and education to help you make your own decisions. I'm not in charge of your decisions. This is not advice. This is how I do stuff. So, all right. And then, okay, we're going to actually talk about this, I promise. All right. So, what's a contract? And why are we all so confused by them? Or not always even confused, but like afraid. So, so people who are in self-employment, we often have a lot of questions about contracts. A lot of those questions start with some trepidation, right? Contracts can feel very formal or even icky, right? Like to put it in writing is to make it, more real, but also a lot of us have had an experience where we felt trapped or screwed over by a contract in our personal lives. So why would we want to do that to others, right? And we can, given all that, try to rationalize this, right? Say, well, maybe I don't need a contract, right? If they're so icky, if all they do is hurt people, then, and especially if you're working with like a friend or someone you really respect highly, do you even need a contract? And if you've already been like working with a client for like years and you didn't get a contract at the beginning, it can feel really awkward to say, okay, now we need to sign a contract. Like, why? I've even had clients, who have that situation where they've had a client for years and they're like, I should probably put on the grown-up pants and be like, let's have a contract. But then they're afraid that that will inspire the client to quit, right? You're going to lose the client because you've asked for something in writing when everything was going fine. Why did you rock the boat? So this is kind of what I'm figuring you're coming to the table with. If you see yourself in this, we're going to address that. If you were like, Maggie, all of these things are stupid and I don't feel any of these ways, great, you can stop watching right now. This is not the conversation for you. Okay, so for those of you still with me, we're going to start by clarifying, reframing what a contract is and is not. So whether you're calling this your contract, an agreement, a scope of work, an informed consent, whatever, operating agreement is something else. These documents are all essentially talking about the same thing. It's that document you use that puts into writing how you and your client are going to work together. This absolutely does not exist to trap either of you into an agreement or an arrangement or anything, right? This is something that you want clarity. Yes, some contracts are crafted to screw the other person over. I acknowledge that that is not the world I live in, and I don't think it's the world any of us should live in. So if I'm going to be proposing a contract to someone, I'm going to say, I think this is putting in writing how we're agreeing to work together. If that's not the case, let me know. And that's literally, my clients have heard me say this to them, pretty much all of them. And something to remember about these terrible trap type contracts is that a good contract should actually include an exit strategy. Your contract actually exists to protect both you and your client. If you want to screw over your client, then it can just protect you. But that's not what we're here for, right? So we're going to draft a contract that protects you and your client, right? That we're going to make this very clear. If somebody is unhappy, we have a parachute that'll get us out of this with minimal feathers ruffled. Okay. To achieve this goal, there are 3 things that you need in your contract. Actually, not things in your contract. There's things about your contract. The 3 things are documentation, clarity, and legal protection. These are the things the contract is trying to give you if you will let it. We're going to start with this documentation component, right? So you can have a verbal or sort of casual agreement. That's fine. And the thing that you're risking by keeping it that informal is that you're not capturing each party's intent. It's not documented anywhere. So made up scenario, let's pretend that you and a friend decide you're going to produce a widget for them. You both agree on a price and a timeline, but no one writes it down, right? You're just having a chat over beers or something. And human minds are kind of crap at remembering things. And we also tend to not be aware of how crappy our memories are. And some of us are even very firmly attached to the idea that we are very good at remembering things. But the other party might not be. Or maybe they are in that camp, but you're remembering different things because we are flawed humans. We do not remember things. So when it comes to the end of this project and you're delivering the widgets, how sure are you that you're both going to remember the same things? And then also, what happens if you remember a different dollar amount or a different end date or differences in the end goal, right? If you don't remember, like if your brain attached to it's the last Friday in January and your friend attached to it is the 27th of January, I am bad at dates, especially that far in the future. So I'm like, I don't know when that actually is, right? You might miss each other, especially if there's a misunderstanding. So in these instances where like we don't remember or we didn't, we weren't as clear as we could have been, it would be really helpful to write it down, right? Memory is fallible, putting it in writing, less fallible. This can be on the napkin at the bar. This is what we're agreeing to. That is in writing. You could put it in a text message, right? You can go back and refer to that. That counts as documentation. It's not as legally binding as it could be, but you've got the documentation part on lockdown with that. You have written it down, right? Whether it's the 4th Friday in January or the 27th of January, you've written it down. Is it the beginning of the day, the end of the day? You might get that specific. It'd be great. So, as long as you've got some of the terms or whatever terms you have addressed, written, black and white, physical, digital, don't care, and both parties lay eyes on it and agree to it, that's like at least 50% of what you want a contract for. This written record is actually key to preserving a positive friendship. So especially when you're doing this with friends, you want to have this conversation with a piece of writing. It doesn't need to be a big deal, but it needs to be this is what I heard. Do you agree? Great, let's move on. Let's get this thing done. That way, either of you can save face at the end of the contract and just like look back through your records and go, oh, I did agree to that. Shoot, right? I'm going to go process my emotions and salvage the friendship and try to make this better, right? It's actually a tool for maintaining relationships. Okay, so if documentation gets you 50% of the way there, what's going to get you the rest of the way? So another factor here would be clarity. That's my number 2. So the second biggest impact in a contract is getting specific and clear about the terms of the agreement. So in this instance where you're making a widget for a friend, let's say you did document, you wrote an email that you're going to produce this widget by the first of the month and it should take 10 hours of work and you're going to get paid $200. Great. If it all goes to plan, you're golden. If one of you forgets, it does not matter. But nothing ever goes to plan. So what happens if it takes longer than 10 hours to produce the widget? Do you stop after 10 hours? Do you complete the project anyway because it's what you agreed to? Do you get paid an additional $20 per hour to complete the work? Or is it more or less than that per hour? There's a lot of things there that might be difficult to agree to in hindsight, but easier to agree to in foresight. And that's why contracts have so many words in them. Because and why it can benefit to use a template, right? Because agreements and contracts benefit from being thorough, from clarifying every possible outcome or issue that could come up. The contract wants to capture a plan for every possible failure or possible success, right? Like if this widget is wildly successful and I'm the one who produced the first batch, do I get some kind of royalties off of it? Or translate to your scenario, right? Is there a residual that comes into this? You know, if this widget becomes the next Labubu, am I going to get royalties from it? Or is it just, I get paid that first $200 and I'm out, right? This is something we'd want to specify in a contract, not just for me, the producer, because I might want more than $200, but also for the person, my friend who's asking for this, because they might want to pay me a residual or they might not. They might want to be like, no, let's be clear. This is my intellectual property. It's just this, right? These are the things that are specified in a contract. So they get really long and confusing and scary, but it's actually just trying to hit all the possible outcomes and facets that could come into an issue. So if you're thinking through all of those things and you've dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, then your clarity is in a good place. Third thing that you really want to like actually throw this over the top into the world's best contract would be the legal protection facet. In my mind, this is actually the least important aspect. Again, not a lawyer. Don't quote a lawyer me about this. And this is where most business owners focus, is they're like, oh, the legal, it's got to be legal. Here's the thing about self-employed businesses. We care about our work and we are so involved in our business as the only person in our business that we're typically well aware of when a client is unhappy. So you're going to be taking preventative actions to prevent this from ever becoming legal. The second that client is unhappy, you're going to want to be talking to them and being like, okay, how can we get this on the right path? What's going wrong? Let's address this. I want you to be happy. So the chances that something's going to go so poorly that you're going to need to leverage the contract's legal protection, it's very slim. If the terms are thorough, if it's in writing, particularly if you're working with non-litigious organizations or individuals who don't have a team of lawyers on their side, this isn't really going to come to the point of needing to hold a lot of legal muster. Um, I would actually argue that in a lot of these cases, um, something that's really well written, and again, maybe with a client that doesn't just have lawyers on retainer, um, it wouldn't, I don't know that I would ever see a courtroom. A judge would never look at this, right? You would get a consultation from a lawyer and they'd be like, yeah, no, this is how we're handling this because you have this all in writing. What is their issue? Um, and or the other party would, take it to a lawyer and maybe they frivolously send you a cease and desist or something, but it's possible. And if you're working with particularly individuals, lawyers are expensive. We don't have that deep of pockets. We don't want to involve one. Even if you're working with small businesses, ain't nobody got the margin for a team of lawyers, right? So the first two aspects of this, having it documented clearly, that's doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. And the point of a contract is to think through all the possible scenarios, including the worst case. So it is worthwhile to think through the possibility that someone gets very litigious and sues you or something, or contests this contract. So to that end, here are some things that can make your contract better legally. As a non-lawyer, this is what I recommend. Get a good template or have one customized for you. There's a lot of resources for this. If you're using any kind of digital signature system like DocuSign or Dropbox Sign, any of those, they have templates for contracts. A lot of payment systems have templates for contracts, like Square has a contracting aspect to it. A lot of CRMs have this. Like I believe HoneyBook does. My favorite CRM, Insightly, does not. EHRs. So if you're a therapist, or anyone in sort of medical professions, and you're using an electronic health record, those usually have templates for these types of disclaimers and consents and stuff that you would need your client to sign. And if for some reason you don't have access, guess what? LegalZoom will sell you a customized contract for like $60. So they'll ask you a bunch of questions. They'll make it work. Would it be even better if a real human lawyer looked at it? Probably. But $60 is a good deal. So I got to mention it. And sometimes you will come into situations where the client insists on using their contract, like if they are a larger company than you and they have a legal department that's gone through this and they're like, this is our approved contract. This is the contract. That's what we do. That's fine. You're going to read it and don't be afraid to negotiate those terms. And when in doubt, if you're worried about some part of it, consult a lawyer. Again, not a lawyer, not giving legal advice, telling you some stuff to think about. So on the legal side, template. Also, have it signed in some legally binding way. This is actually so easy and free-ish. Okay, so if you're already paying for Google Workspace, they now include a digital signature feature. You already have it. If you have Adobe Sign, you probably also already have it. I use Dropbox Sign, and they offer 3 free signatures per month. That's not like a promo I'm offering. That's like just how they operate. Go get yourself a free Dropbox Sign account, and you can send 3 signature requests a month for free. Okay, so there's no reason not to have this signed in a legally binding way. And then the sort of third final bit to make sure that it's legally binding is that you save it someplace, right? Keep it. Know where you kept it, right? Whether that's Google Drive, OneDrive, you print it out and put it in a file folder. I don't care, as long as you know where it is, right? Not knowing where your contracts live, a bit of a problem. So put it someplace you'll remember. And that's kind of the moral of the story here. We're going to like lock it down, right? The point of a contract is to take that bull by the horns, actually make it very clear how you and your client are going to be or have already been working together. And you're going to be leagues better off merely by documenting with clarity. So, as I've already said, the way that I like to phrase this is I'm putting into writing how you and I plan to work together. That's a great relationship building way of looking at a contract. It's not about building walls, it's about clarifying the paths between you. And that kind of a contract actually provides safety for the both of you. And so that both of you can clearly understand and agree with the terms of this. So once you've got that part, you slap a signature on it, you're great. You're doing so good, right? You can always strengthen those efforts over time. If you're like, oof, I'm just worried about, I just used a template. I don't know that it's strong enough. Great. Go get it reviewed by a lawyer, right? You can always strengthen your efforts over time. But if where you're starting at is I have 0 contracts in use, step 1 is to do something. Please document clearly, maybe get it digitally signed. We'd love that. So if you're interested in learning more about the key parts of a contract and getting into a place where you can really understand what you're talking about in the silly legalese and the facets of it that you want to be considering and all of those thorough things that I mentioned, I do have a section in the Launchpad now called Contracts 101 that talks about that, goes over that. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not giving legal advice, but I'm trying to demystify some of these basic business things that we all have to deal with in self-employed business. So hopefully I have dispelled some fear, I hope. And maybe this will feel like a little bit more of an attainable thing for you to do. Like, hey, it's about to be 2026. Maybe 2026 is the year of the contract. Go get this stuff in writing. Maybe? I don't know. That's not how you have to spend your holidays, but just spitballing, throwing some ideas out there. So yeah, let's keep doing some good business and being clear, transparent, wonderful people that I expect we all are. So, all right, guys, I will see you in the new year because this is my last week of work for the year. So y'all have happy holidays and let's go knock them dead in 2026. Something like that. Okay, bye.